All guests appear via the Boardwalk Honda hotline, including our next guest, Kurt Helin, NBC Sports. Listen to Kurt on NBC Sports Radio, the 24/7 live sports talk network. You can listen at NBCSportsRadio.com. The second half of the NBA season, kind of a stretch run, a sprint to the end, Kurt. 27 games left here locally for the Sixers. They'll play the Bulls tonight here on 97.3 ESPN. Let's start with the Sixers. Is this 27-game stretch? They're currently in the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference, but a lot of people thinking, look at their schedule. Do we think the Sixers can get a home series in the Eastern Conference playoffs?
It's possible. I mean, their schedule from here out is actually the easiest in the NBA the rest of the way. That's a good sign. I think, there's just that they're going to get in. If somebody's falling out now, it's Miami. If they're going to climb the ladder, that probably takes a lot. I think Milwaukee's still going to play well. I think some of the teams above them are going to continue to do well. I don't know if they're going to get all the way up to a home series, but the higher you climb, the better things get. I mean, if you've got to face, Toronto or Boston, it's a much tougher, or Cleveland, even the way they're playing now, it's a much tougher first-round series, and you get up to that 4-5 matchup, and maybe it's, it's Washington, but they're pretty inconsistent, and suddenly you got a shot.
Speaking of the playoff, there was a lot of talk about tweaking the playoff format, the old school East-West 1-8, 2-7 out the window. It's been kind of hinted at for a couple of years because the West has been a lot deeper than the East, but is this starting to pick up some steam? Is there some legitimate conversation about tweaking the playoff format?
It got really picked up because Adam Silver didn't shoot it down at the All-Star game as he has kind of in years past. But what I'm just not sure is going to happen, aside the logistics of the travel and maybe having to start the playoffs, that kind of stuff could be starting the playoffs earlier, all that stuff could be worked out a little bit. But you've got to find a way to get owners, to get specifically owners in the East right now, to vote against their interest. Right now, if you're Philadelphia, let's say you're going to get bounced in the first round anyway, and you're still going to get 2 to 3 home dates in that first round. Remember, you're not paying the players anymore. That's a lot of income that really helps the bottom line for smaller and middle market teams that they might not get because they got bounced because they lost out to Utah or the Clippers or somebody in the West who had a slightly better record. I don't think you're going to get the owners to vote against their self-interest like that.
Kurt Helin's with us, NBC Sports, NBA, as the second half of the season gets underway tonight with the Sixers taking on the Bulls right here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm not a big fan of that, by the way. How about you? Do you like the shakeup, or do you like the way 1-8 East-West, keep it the way it is, or do you think there needs to be some sort of shakeup?
The pendulum will swing the other way. I guess it's kind of a nice idea that somebody at the 16th slot, but I don't think it really changes that much. I think the idea is maybe right now, this season, the two best teams are the two best teams are Golden State and Houston, and so they're going to meet in the conference finals, and it's going to be more like mid-'80s NFL where it's like, all right, Dallas versus the 49ers is the actual Super Bowl, then they'll play another game. But that's okay. I still think people tune in. I still think, look, if LeBron's there or even if it's not LeBron and it's the Celtics, you're getting so many stars and so many big names on the stage that the NBA will be fine. I don't think it's worth tweaking it.
A couple of years ago here locally, it was a big story with Sam Hinkie tanking for the most part without really using the word, but everybody knew what was going on. Mark Cuban got fined $600,000 for basically admitting that losing is their best option. So I guess this is the league's way of saying you are not going to tank or you are not going to admit that you're losing on purpose?
More the latter. Look, everybody's still tanking. Like right now, you look down at the bottom of the standings, going into the games again, there are 8 teams within 3 games, and that's not counting the Knicks, who are objectively terrible right now, especially without Porzingis. There's going to be some serious tanking there. There's going to be teams really jockeying for playoff, or lottery odds, I should say. It's going to be going on. The league just doesn't want to say it. They just don't want it public. They are still scarred a little bit by the reaction in some quarters to the Sam Hinkie thing, but they don't like the perception of tanking, and they don't like the fact that, like, right now, there are Chicago Bulls fans who are mad when the Bulls win a game. That's not really what the perception the league wants. So
we lived it, Kurt. We lived it.
They're doing it. It's an image thing.
Oh, believe me, we lived it. We lived it here for at least 3 or 4 years where you were kind of like, do you really, really want to win this game? It's an odd feeling, but I guess the Sixers, are kind of coming out on the other end now, as a piece by Rick Bucher at Bleacher Report kind of talked about Sam and what he's up to and whether he would get back in the league. And I'm sure you have, you and everybody who covers the sport have some take on Sam's future in basketball if he has one at all.
I think he is going to be back. I know Sam said he won't. Rick, I should say, said Sam won't be back. I think a team will give him a shot again. It may be more of a situation like you see these around the league, where mostly with like a player or a coach GM, where he's more of an executive. He's setting the tone. He's setting the overall picture, and then there's somebody handling the day-to-day, because that was obviously one of the complaints, is that he wasn't really involved and really great with the agents and some of the other teams and stuff. That said, look, not only is it working there, but I don't think Sam ever thought this was a one-size-fits-all, like every team should do this type of thing. If you're going to handle things differently depending on your market and where you are in the curve. So I think he's going to get a shot. He's too smart a guy who kind of wants back in. I expect somebody somewhere will give him a chance again.
Kurt Helin's with us here, NBC Sports, NBA. Kawhi Leonard, what's going on with this story? Are we seeing potentially the end of Kawhi's stay in San Antonio sometime down the road?
Yeah, it's possible. He's a free agent in 2019 if things are still kind of messy there, but I imagine it gets worked out. This is an organization that's, LaMarcus Aldridge asked for a trade. They figured out what to do with him, and he's an all-star. They don't really make those kind of mistakes. It's just a situation where, and I think we've seen this in other sports too, it's not just a basketball thing, where the injury is taking longer to heal than everyone thinks. They have medically cleared him. The doctors think he's fine. He's like, no, I'm not fine. There's still something going on there. Players know their bodies. He's getting second and third opinions in New York. He's not ready to come back yet. And that's not, look, Kawhi's crazy competitive. This isn't like Kawhi's trying to just skip out on and earn some money. There's something going on there, but that's creating some tension within the organization and between him and the organization. If it doesn't get worked out, 2019 gets a lot more interesting, but I imagine it will.
Yes, indeed, Kurt. Second half of the season, really, the pseudo second half of the season starts tonight. Biggest storyline for you down the stretch they come?
Twofold. But the biggest one is, are the Cavs for real? Like how, we saw them a little bit, after, 2 games with this new roster. I don't think they're as good as last year's team. I think they're trying on defense. That's a major upgrade. They're getting better play out of Jordan Clarkson than they were out of Isaiah Thomas or Derrick Rose or anybody else. Like, they're George Hill there too. They're getting better play, but I don't think this is better than last year's Cleveland team, and I think teams can start to pick them apart. So how real are they is a great question. And the other thing to watch is the playoff chase at the bottom of the West. 5 teams for 3 spots is going to be fascinating. It's going to be a real roller coaster. All
right, Kurt Helin here on the Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. Always fun talking some hoops as the second half starts tonight. Sixers and the Bulls, 8 o'clock right here on 97.3 ESPN. You can listen to more of Kurt on NBC Sports Radio, the 24/7 live sports talk network, NBCSportsRadio.com. Download the NBC Sports mobile app today. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you.